We're ready to call the meeting to order. Good afternoon.
If someone has a device on, please mute yourself. We're getting some feedback.
Everyone protected on their microphones. Welcome to the December 2nd meeting of the City Plan Commission. My name is Chris Cummings, Chair of the Commission, and I call this meeting to order at 1:36 p.m. If Ms. Lorai would read the statement to the public, I'd appreciate it.
Statement to the public. The City Plan Commission has sole and final approval authority over subdivision maps. Although the Commission is sole and final authority with respect to subdivision approval, this authority is statutorily limited to the ministerial examination of the application's conformance to all applicable code provisions. The staff report for an agenda item may include conditions, exceptions, or modifications. If the Commission does not wish to approve an exception or modification or require a condition, then the Commission's motion will state which have not been approved. Otherwise, the staff report with all modifications, exceptions, and conditions is approved, and the applicant shall comply with all provisions of the staff report. All agenda items other than subdivision items will be conducted in the form of a public hearing. The normal process is as follows. First, the Commission will hear a staff report followed by a statement from the applicant. Then members of the public may speak, followed by any final statement from the applicant. Finally, the matter will be closed to discussion among the Commission. The Commission shall then make a recommendation that will be forwarded to City Council.
Thank you, Commissioner Lorai. Any changes to the agenda, Raul?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. Raul Garcia, Planning Inspections. We do have some changes. Item number 2 is to be postponed for 2 weeks. We get item 2 postponed for 2 weeks. And then we are going to shuffle a couple of the items around. Items 10 and 11 to be moved up and heard after item number 5. So items 10 and 11 to be moved up to be heard after the subdivisions, which would be after item number 5. Other than that, there are some several revised staff reports. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the changes?
Move to approve.
We have a second. All right, thanks. Can I get all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Is there anyone signed up to speak generally?
Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. Kevin Smith with Planning Inspections. I do not believe anyone signed up to speak under call to the public, but there are some for some of the items.
Got you. Thank you. Okay. Unless anyone wants to discuss the consent agenda, can I get a motion?
Second, Guzman.
All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we're ready for item number 1. Oh, is it postponed again? Item number 3, please.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the Plan Commission. I'm Curtis Woodward with Planning and Inspections. And item 3 on the agenda is the Enchanted Hills Unit 5 Replat A.
IT, can you share the podium? Thank you.
Let me see if I can. Oh, IT's taking care of that. It's that one, yes, thank you. Okay. Thanks to our friends at IT. Whoop. We'll get back to the beginning of the presentation. So Enchanted Hills Unit 5 Replat A is item 3 on the agenda. This is a re-subdivision combination application for 32 single-family lots, one 14-acre commercial lot, and one lot for a drainage pond that is .4462 acres approximately. This lies within and is in conformance with the Enchanted Hills Land Study of 2008. As such, the proposed subdivision was granted vesting rights and is being reviewed under the former subdivision code in effect at that time. Here we have the subject property on the aerial map. You can see to the west, north, and east is vacant land, and then to the south is single-family residential subdivision development. Here we have the subdivision plat superimposed on the aerial photo, and I will just kind of outline the changes that they're proposing in this re-subdivision plat. They are proposing to extend Enchanted Pass Drive up to and to intersect with Hunter Foster Drive, which you can see is the road on the west. Just to the west of that, you see in purple is the new proposal for the drainage lot. The lot configurations of the lots on those 3 cul-de-sacs at the south end of this subdivision, those have been reconfigured slightly to accommodate for the commercial lot. They changed the kind of the boundaries to square up that commercial lot to make it a little bit more usable and more rectangular. Here's the preliminary plat that shows the topography is rather significant in this area, and it gives you an idea of how it fits in with the existing surrounding developments. Here we have the final plat. This illustrates a little more clearly those redesigned lots within the 3 cul-de-sacs to the south. We have gone through and made sure that all those redesigned lots do meet the minimum area and width requirement for the zone. This is a copy of the land study map from 2008. Kind of in that clouded area on the left side in red is roughly the area where this subdivision plat is being proposed. And we did go through and ensure that from the time of the approval of the land study, basically every 1 to 3 years there's been a new phase or a new unit of Enchanted Hills subdivisions being developed over the years, so they have thus preserved their vesting rights. Along with this application, there are 2 modification requests. These modification requests are consistent with the same requests that were made and approved in 2019 when the Enchanted Hills Unit 5 subdivision plat was originally approved. And they are, number 1, to allow for a modified major arterial street for Hunter Foster Drive. They have a 108-foot wide right-of-way instead of 110 feet. And rather than having 15-foot parkway on either side of the road, on the north side they have a kind of a standard 10-foot parkway. On the south side is an 18-foot wide parkway with a meandering bike and hike path. The other modification is to allow street names in excess of 13 characters for the streets that are on the list. I won't bore you by reading all those street names, but again, they are consistent with what was previously approved in 2019. But since they are proposing to extend the road to intersect with Hunter Pass, and because they are proposing the new commercial lot, these modifications do need to be reconsidered and voted upon by the Plan Commission today. Because there were modifications proposed or that need to be approved, notices were mailed to property owners on November 17th. To date, we have not received any phone calls or emails either in opposition or support. And with that, staff recommends approval of Enchanted Hills Unit 5 Replat A, with the one condition being that the double frontage lots, of which I think there are only 2 of them, be required to have landscaping on the rear in compliance with the code. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Woodward. Any questions for staff?
What would be the zoning on the commercial lot?
That actually, I believe, this commission heard that proposal sometime earlier this year to rezone that property to commercial. It has if I'm understanding correctly, Raul could maybe correct me, but I think the city council has not yet voted to finalize that rezone, so it's still pending.
Commissioner Guzman?
Yes, I have a question, Mr. Chair. As far as the parks, are we not showing parks in this because it's a combination of whatever it's been built before, or?
Yes, so the original Enchanted Hills Unit 5 did contain some parks, and in the overall development on previous phases and previous units, there are some parks. But since this is just kind of a corner of that original Unit 5, it doesn't show on this particular plat, but there are parks and open space and some meandering trails and things throughout the overall development.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Nope, thank you.
Thank you.
Can we hear from the applicant, please?
Good afternoon, Chair, Commissioners. Conrad Conde with Conde Incorporated. We do concur with all staff's comments and glad to entertain any other questions you all may have.
Any questions for the applicant? Nope. Thank you for, I won't bring up the cul-de-sacs again now that I know the topography where we're working here.
Especially in mountain development.
Thank you for the education. All right, so further discussion or motion, please?
Motion to approve, Guzman?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Okay, item number 4, please. Is this a rave? Drop the beat.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the Commission. John Scott with Planning and Inspections. Everybody can hear me okay and see the presentation?
John, I think you have some feedback maybe, or someone does.
If anyone on Teams, please make sure to mute yourself if you're not speaking, just to avoid any background noise.
I think that did it. Okay. No,
Do I still have feedback or how do I?
it's still feeding back.
Okay, one second. Let me change. Okay, how about now?
Sounds good.
Okay, my apologies. Thank you for your patience. Sorry about that. And thank you all for everything you do and being here today. John Scott with Planning and Inspections. Item 4 on the agenda today is Let a Head Start Center. This is a major combination application, and this does have a revised staff report. Here we see the development located in aerial imagery. The development's located in District 3, north of Midway Drive and west of Alameda Drive. Primary to the access to the subdivisions proposed from both Student Place and Midway Drive. The application is being reviewed under the current subdivision code. Here we see the proposed final plat superimposed over that aerial imagery. The applicant's proposing to re-subdivide 2.85 acres of land into one commercial lot. Here we see the preliminary plat and the final plat. The applicant's requesting one exception pursuant to El Paso City Code Section 19.10.0501A, roadway participation policies, and that's to waive 5 feet of landscape parkway along Midway Drive. Here we see the required cross-section and the proposed and existing, the existing cross-section. The exception, when evaluating the request, the exception request to waive the required improvements for Midway Drive do meet the criteria under 19.10.050A1A, as 50% of the lots within a quarter mile of Midway have been developed, and the existing street improvements along Midway are all the exact same and existing the same nature as the exception request is presented. Here we see the existing conditions looking east and west along Midway Drive. As you can see, it's existing right now with the parkway configuration as shown, with the sidewalk abutting the sidewalk and then the parkway to the inside. And then to the right, the picture looking west down Midway, you'll see that Student Place at that corner does have the correct configuration to DSC standards. There is a proposed rezoning for this parcel, proposing it to rezone from RF to C1 that's been submitted. No date has been established for a CPC hearing yet. And with that, staff recommends approval of the Isleta Head Start Center on a re-subdivision, or excuse me, a major combination basis, and approval of the exception request, subject to the following condition: that rezoning case, PZRZ 2127, be approved by City Council prior to the recording of the plat. And that concludes my presentation. I'll not take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Any questions for staff? Regarding the conditions surrounding the property, you said there are some parkways in the area, or no? Did I misunderstand?
There are not. There on the other side. I'm sorry, it was myself giving myself feedback. Thought somebody was cutting it. So there, within the 50% of, there is parkway, but not to DSC standard on the non-proportionate share side of Midway. Excuse me, actually, let me go back to the cross section. On the other side of Midway, it's actually just 16-foot parkway. There's no sidewalk. It is not to standard. And Student Place is to DSC standard on one side, and then the rest of it is commercial development. This little pocket in here has a mix of standard and not standard, but it's not 50% of the 300-foot buffer. So it does meet the criteria.
Hey, John,
or a mile, excuse me.
John, can you go to the aerial? That might
Absolutely.
be better for the commission, so they can see it.
Right. So within the quarter mile buffer, you have this residential pocket down here that has a set portions of the parkway that are to DSC standard and portions that are not. Within Midway right here, going down Midway all along the applicant's proportionate share going towards Riverside High School, as you can see, it's the same, sidewalk and then parkway or parking lot. Along Student Place, the applicant's proportionate share does meet the standard. Same with along Vocational, but on the opposite side of Student Place, it does not meet the standard. Same with on the opposite side of Vocational. On Alameda, you're not meeting the standard, and then there's more commercial within the buffer. So all in all, within the quarter mile, there's not the 50% meeting it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Scott.
Yes.
I think in short, on student and vocational, the DSC standards are met, but on Midway is the only portion that.
And
is not.
Alameda too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But this
But it doesn't
does not appear
abut
to
Alameda.
abut Alameda.
Right. Okay. Any other questions for staff? Nope. Can we hear from the applicant, please? Star 6 to unmute yourself.
If the applicant is here for item 4, please unmute yourself. Star 6 if you're on Teams.
CAD Consulting, Carlos or Enrique? Well, I guess we can just move on. Anyone want to discuss this further? I have a couple of points. I don't want to punish institutions necessarily, but when it is an institution doing a new development, I feel like we should not necessarily blindly waive modifications, especially this mixed amount. It's not clear that there's no DSC compliant cross sections in this area. So in my opinion, I don't think we should allow for the modifications, especially there's really no one here to argue for that. So that's my opinion, but I'll entertain a motion or further discussion.
To the chair real quick, if I may.
Sure.
Raul Garcia, Plan Inspections. So just to provide some additional information, this is essentially a cleanup. Obviously, the school facility has been there for years. The existing conditions have been there for years. It is unplatted, so every time they want to add a building or do some changes, we always have to go through this process. They're taking care of that today. The zoning case Mr. Scott mentioned, that's also a cleanup. It's currently split zone, RF and C, a commercial, so that's posing issues for them as well. They're coming in to rezone. So again, it is a cleanup, and essentially it's the existing conditions that have been there for years. Anything that's approved today, again, would only apply for that portion that's fronting this property, which is just a small portion that encompasses that whole frontage that applies to Riverside High School.
And the parkway is, so what is it now? It's a sidewalk?
Essentially what we have here is a wider than usual sidewalk with a missing parkway. But it is at least a 7 foot, probably more, a little wider 7 foot sidewalk.
Okay. I mean, I realize the nature of what I'm suggesting, that they would have to pull up the sidewalk and plant a parkway and move the sidewalk. But I did not actually realize that it's a long-standing facility, so maybe that's too far gone. So I'll retract maybe. But I'll leave my point that when an institution is doing this kind of a thing, I think we can allow for less modification and more of a higher standard.
Yes, sir, that's definitely we can note moving forward in early discussions with these types of projects. It's something that we can definitely take into account.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you. Okay, I saw somebody come in, if it was Kat or not, but now they're gone, I see. So I guess we'll entertain more discussion or a motion.
Second, Guzman.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, item number 5, please.
Yes, indeed. John Scott again, and good afternoon again, everyone. John Scott, Planning and Inspections. Item 5 on the agenda is Montclair Unit 3, Replat A. This is a re-subdivision combination. Here we see the development on the aerial imagery. The development's located in District 6, north of Montwood, west of McRae. Primary access to the subdivisions proposed from Montwood Drive, and the application is being reviewed under the current subdivision code. Here we see the proposed final plat superimposed over that aerial image. The applicant is proposing to subdivide into two commercial lots, two residential lots, one being in size 6,300 square feet and the other one 38,062 square feet. So one residential lot into two residential lots, 6,300 square feet one lot, 38,062 square feet the other lot. Here we see the preliminary plat. The applicant is proposing to dedicate, or the applicant is proposing to dedicate 5 feet of right-of-way to the city in order to meet the DSC standard and have a 5-foot parkway and 5-foot sidewalk. Here we see the final plat. Notices were mailed to property owners within 300 feet on November 17th, and the Planning Division received 2 calls of inquiry and 1 call of opposition to the request. The nature of the opposition was related to debris from potential trash behind the properties along Gerlach going into their property, and them having a concern with that potentially happening. And with that, staff recommends approval of Montclair Unit 3 on replat A, Montclair Unit 3 replat A on a re-subdivision combination basis. And that concludes my presentation. I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Any questions for staff? Sure. Kathy?
So what, about the opposition communication, what can be done about the debris going into the residential yard?
I mean, the situation is the same situation that is right now. As it is right now, it's one residential lot. So not much is changing. They asked something about fire review, fire recommending approval. This is just two residential lots. So, I mean, it's the same situation that anybody could have, I guess, to anybody who has a neighbor to the rear. The neighbor could have trash in the rear that another neighbor doesn't like, and it blows in their lot. Obviously, this is a bigger lot, and it affects a few properties to the rear. But I would say it's just a matter to discuss with the neighbor, and as far as the city, it would be bringing any of those issues up to code enforcement.
Thank you.
So obviously,
Yeah.
if there's anything illegal, they would bring it to code enforcement just as any other citizen would, I would say.
Thank you. It's just that that one lot seems really large, 38,000, right?
It's huge.
Right, it definitely is, but it is, as it stands right now, one lot.
And if I might, Kevin Smith with Planning Inspections, with any undeveloped lot, often there's not eyes on the lot, and so items may accumulate with time, just with the winds and that we have here in El Paso. So with it being potentially developed into two residential lots, that would give an opportunity to be developed, and then with proper care and of the lot and eyes on it on a constant basis, that would assist. And obviously, as Mr. Scott mentioned, if there were debris, excessive amount of debris blowing over, it happens from time to time, but if it's excessive, that's where our code enforcement would be notified and would investigate appropriately.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? No. Can we hear from the applicant, please? *6 to unmute yourself.
If the applicant for item 5, please unmute yourself, *6.
SMH Engineering.
Again, this is for Montclair.
Hi, this is Sandra with SMH Engineering.
Hello?
I'm here to answer any questions.
Yes, I did have a question. I
Wait,
tried getting some more information.
excuse me.
prior to
Excuse
this-
me. It's time for the City Plan Commission to be asking the questions, so if you could hold your questions, there's a public comment period after our portion, so we'll let you know when it's time for the public comment.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Do you agree with all staff comments? I'm speaking
Yes,
to,
yes.
How you doing? Good to see you.
good to see you. You're not actually,
Ah, ¿cómo está?
If
whoa.
to tho-
SMH Engineering, are you there? SMH Engineering, last call. Okay, let's move on.
So the applicant for
Yes,
item
I'm here.
5, okay.
Are you in a place that's private? You can have a conversation with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And you agree with all staff comments?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? All right, let's have a motion. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go to the public, please. There's someone on the line from the public wanting to comment on this. *6 to unmute yourself.
Are there any members of the public who'd like to speak on item
Hello?
5?
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm sorry, it's my first time doing one of these. I'm sorry if I chimed in at the wrong time.
That's okay. It's been an interesting meeting so far, but go ahead.
Yes, I'm calling because I tried getting some information prior to this meeting by emailing and calling. So this is the first time I'm hearing that they're dividing into two residential lots. And I was just curious as to kind of like the shape of it, because it is a very odd shaped lot. And it kind of points triangular towards the end. So is that going to be like the backyard, or is that not going to go into, I guess I'm curious about the second half of the lot, given the shape of it.
Okay. Can the applicant answer that question, please?
And if the member of the public, if you can just identify yourself for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Yahaira Home.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, there will be one lot in the front with a residential home, and there will be a home in the back. Knowing how the lot is sized, there will be a driveway that goes all the way to the back to where a residential home will be located.
And the driveway you're talking, the one behind Baptist Road, like that's going to be a paved road, or is just going to be access to Montwood?
It will be an access driveway to their house from Montwood, where the
So the entire
existing drive is right now.
And so it's going to be two residential lots, but one of the residential lots is going to have like, I guess, like a guest house, so to say?
There will be one in the back and one right fronting Montwood.
And then the backyard will just cover the lower part of the lot?
The back where it's pointy will be a backyard.
Okay, thank you. That was my question.
Okay, thank you. Any other members of the public that would like to comment on this? Star 6 to unmute yourself, please. Okay, if not, can move to further discussion or motion, please.
Commissioner Lori, I move to approve.
I second Commissioner Saad.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, item number 10.
Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioner Joaquin Rodriguez with the City of El Paso Capital Improvement Department. Item 10, Kevin, was it item 10 and 11 on the agenda?
It is. Sorry, they're 10 and 11 are together, yes.
Okay. So item 10 and 11 are a number of changes to the city's, what we know of now as the design standards for construction. This was actually presented to the City Plan Commission in early September, informally. So now we're back in front of you all today for a formal recommendation to be forwarded to City Council with the expectation that City Council would take action on this item in hopefully early next year, January. So what's proposed for adoption today and what's in your backup is, of course, the street design manual itself, an amendment to the city's major thoroughfare plan, an amendment to Title 19 subdivision ordinance, and an amendment to the design standards for construction. I want to be clear that all of these amendments proposed today are necessary to incorporate the street design manual into the design and development process, but they are not comprehensive amendments to all the different changes that we might want to see from these documents. This is a brief history of the outreach to the public that we have conducted in association with the street design manual. In February of 2021, the street design manual draft was published online for public comment on the city's website. And throughout spring of 2021, there were two separate presentations by Alex Hoffman, our assistant director, to the developer focus group. There were presentations to District 3, 5, 6, and 7 city council representative offices, as well as a community meeting for District 5. August 18th, I attended a District 3 community meeting. August 25th, we presented again to the developer focus group, and we did give them copies to the online links where they could comment. September 9th was our first presentation to the City Plan Commission here, the informal one. As a follow-up to that August 25th meeting, I had a meeting with Hunt Communities on September 20th. October 13th, we presented to the Bicycle Advisory Committee. Again, informally, their purview wouldn't necessitate a formal recommendation on this from them. October 19th, I attended a webinar by an organization called Farm and City that focuses on reinventing street design. And then November 9th, I had a meeting with Jose Landeros and his team over at the County of El Paso to coordinate some of the standards in the street design manual and really just to give them an overview of how it aligns with their existing standards as well and provides the flexibility to tie into county development standards. And then November 17th, we met with the executive committee, I believe, of the developer group. And that brings us to today. So I want to spend a little time on the Mtp Amendment specifically and what the amendment does. It adds context area designations to existing thoroughfares. What that means is if you look through the street design manual, there are 3 context area designations for compact urban, drivable suburban, and rural. So it takes the existing thoroughfare network and adds that classification to each of those thoroughfares. And I'll show you a map in a few slides of what that looks like. It also removes proposed thoroughfares from the lost dog area. I'm sure you all are familiar with that effort. It's a voter-driven effort to preserve the area. As such, it doesn't make sense to show those connections on our major thoroughfare plan because of the rezoning of that area to natural open space and the conservation easement that would not permit any development of thoroughfares in that area. We've also made some minor changes to the existing and proposed thoroughfares based on as-built conditions. When I say minor thoroughfares, I mean things where there was a proposed thoroughfare a few hundred feet from an existing thoroughfare that wasn't on the MTP. We've realigned those in a sort of a common sense way to align with existing conditions. And this second portion here, what the amendment does not do, this sort of comes from that meeting that we had with the executive committee of the developers focus group. This is not a comprehensive update to our transportation network. There were a lot of concerns about parts of the MTP and thoroughfares designated on the MTP not aligning with the existing transportation grid, not aligning with their development plans, not aligning with future land studies. That is not the intent of the street design manual. That's not to say that it's not something that the city should undertake, but that's just not the effort that we're doing right now. Again, this does not make any substantial changes, deletions, or additions to the existing thoroughfare network. Secondly, the Dsc Amendment. The only amendment that we're making to the existing design standards for construction is removing the street cross-section guidance from the Dsc and referring designers and design professionals to the street design manual. What this amendment to the Dsc does not do, it does not make changes to technical standards and specifications. Now, this might be forthcoming as a separate effort by the Capital Improvements Department in association with Planning and Inspections and a number of other departments, but that's not what we're looking at today. Similarly, this does not directly address stormwater management or drainage design elements in the Dsc. Again, this may be a forthcoming effort, but that is separate from what we're looking at today. This is an exhibit of the 2025 Major Thoroughfare Plan that you'll find in your backup. Again, this is just to illustrate what those context areas look like. So in sort of the bluish color that you see mostly downtown and in a few other sort of commercial centers and commercial nodes throughout the city, those are the compact urban thoroughfares. So these are areas where we are really adopting design standards that promote things like walkability, that promote safer street design standards in an effort to create a safer transportation network in areas that we would consider compact and urban. So mostly you'll see that in the urban core and in other areas where you may expect people to sort of be participating in a more vibrant streetscape than what you see in purple, which is drivable suburban. So these are the large portions of our city which have been developed in a single family fashion for the past 40, 50 years. So those areas are going to be more vehicle oriented by nature, and the design standards in the street design manual align with those more vehicle oriented standards. And then outside the city limits, you see the rural thoroughfares in pink. So again, those standards in rural are really there to support lower density development that is typical of those areas. And additionally, those standards align more closely with the existing County of El Paso subdivision standards. Again, all of this is part of implementing Plan El Paso and the East Side Master Plan. So this ties street design standards to future land use map designations. You all are familiar with the future land use map. It recognizes that one-size-fits-all approach is not ideal for street design, and it identifies the context of development for the next several years. And this is an effort to align our street designs with the context of that future development. Again, a major part of it is that it consolidates elements from all these different titles, puts them into one, hopefully easy to use, more straightforward document for the development community and for design professionals within the city, and with other intergovernmental agencies that they can look to one space in our Code of Ordinances, the Street Design Manual, for all things street design related. Again, this is a more meaningful implementation of our city's bike plan. And what ultimately will happen is the design standards for construction will be incorporated as part of the street design manual as we move forward with adoption through City Council. Again, we eliminate redundancies, inconsistencies, and competing priorities, implements the bike standards, again, reduces the required travel width for most roadways. You'll see this in most of the design standards in the street design manual. The minimum, the recommended and required travel lane width is 10 feet where there's transit requirements. The outside travel lane is 11 feet. And again, it provides some administrative flexibility for existing conditions, hopefully minimizing the need for the development community and for individual developers and property owners to constantly be requesting exceptions and waivers to standards. This is a basic outline of what that street design process looks like. I think we went over this in a little more detail back in September, but essentially this is how it lays out. So, step one is to review the functional classification and context. Step two is to look at Chapter 3 of the Street Design Manual for what elements and dimensions are consistent with that functional classification and context. And then going to Chapter 6.1, this would set your number of neighborhood access points and connectivity. Again, the existing standards for connectivity aren't being changed from what's in Title 19, so you'll see that same connectivity index requirement. And then we apply the Thoroughfare standards, which are in Chapter 4. This is sort of the cross-section step. And then, if needed, we can look at exceptions or modifications. That's all laid out in Chapter 5. Again, the City Plan Commission will retain the same authority and purview over exceptions and modifications that it currently has, using the same criteria. And then finally, looking at construction design details in the DSC in terms of the more technical standards of roadway design. So that's the process as it applies to private development. For public processes, it's a little bit more involved. I won't go through this in detail with you all, but it is clearly laid out in the street design manual. Again, going back to the MTP, the old MTP only looks at collectors, minor arterials, and major arterials, and those are the functional classifications that align with the requirements of our Metropolitan Planning Organization, the MPO, and they align with the federal classification system. So those aren't changing. That remains consistent so that we can remain consistent with all of our region's long-range documents and with federal requirements. The only addition is that the new MTP recognizes context in addition to function. As I mentioned earlier, those three context areas are rural, drivable suburban, and compact urban. This is a visualization you all have seen before. Both of these roads are classified as major arterials, but when you look at them in context, they're very different roadways, right? In terms of walkability, maintenance, surrounding land use, very different roadways. So the street design manual applies a different set of standards to these roadways, whereas the old design standards for construction would set out the same cross-section for both of these roadways as they're both major arterials. In terms of bicycle facilities, this is a very general overview, but in essence, the standards being adopted with the street design manual that's in your backup, it's chapter 4.7, are essentially the NACTO urban bikeway design standards that are now going to be formally adopted. So where the current code essentially requires a 10-foot hike and bike as one of the only bicycle facilities available, this expands that to off-road facilities, on-road facilities, dedicated bicycle facilities, cycle tracks, shared use paths. And this aligns with the city's adopted bike plan, which has always specified that variety of facilities, but has never been implemented into our subdivision ordinance or our design standards. In terms of lighting design, there's some changes to the lighting design process, but ultimately again, there are context-sensitive requirements in the IAS lighting handbook, but ultimately the minimum requirements for new developments, the requirements that might affect new subdivisions have not changed substantially. So our next step, the documents are still available for public comment. We did receive a few comments from after that executive committee meeting. One of them is something that we will address. A few of the other comments weren't really pertinent to this street design manual effort, but were definitely pertinent to the major thoroughfare plan in general. I think I definitely agree with some of the comments that it's probably time for an update of our major thoroughfare plan. But I just want to be clear that this amendment to the major thoroughfare plan is not that update. That would be a separate process requiring a lot of public input, a lot of public outreach. And it's definitely something that we can start to have conversations about internally. And something that even City Plan Commission, if you so wish, with your recommendation on the street design manual, you can forward whatever comments you wish to City Council about potentially looking at an MTP update or a comprehensive plan update or something of that nature. So again, if there are any comments from you all on these, I know we shared the links with you back in September. I don't think I received any comments on the virtual link or that came through. If there are any comments you all have today, we're happy to implement those before going to City Council with your recommendation. But again, our goal is to put this before City Council for action by the end of this year is probably out the window at this point, but early next year. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you all might have.
Thank you, Joaquin. Commissioner Stout, go ahead.
Thank you for your thorough presentation. Pardon me if you addressed this at the early September meeting. I wasn't a commissioner yet. I read through your documents, and there was something I noticed that perhaps should be there, maybe not in this design or another one, but when work is done on major and minor arterials, there doesn't seem to be a sign indicating when it starts and when it ends. And Mesa on the west side was a major arterial, and and I realized the pandemic interfered with things, but it took years for it to be fixed. And then as a minor arterial, Robinson was being, I had people tell me, they start work on it, then they stop for a couple of months, then they start again, then they stop for a couple of months. Would there be a way of alerting the public through signs about start dates and end dates so that people had a sense of when they could move through those areas?
So the street design manual itself doesn't address what would essentially be a traffic control requirement. I know the Streets and Maintenance Department is sort of where that traffic control function is housed. So as part of this effort, it's not something that's addressed, but it's definitely something that I can take back to my team and to my conversations with the Streets and Maintenance Department about having some signage that is a little more illustrative of project scheduling on projects like this. As far as Mesa, and any construction along the majority of Mesa would be a TxDOT effort. So that might be a more difficult conversation to have about their signage requirements. But we're constantly coordinating with TxDOT and having meetings with them. So it's definitely something that I can bring up as something that came up at the City Plan Commission meeting.
Thank you for bringing that up in the future.
Any other questions?
I have a question. I noticed that there was a reference in the street design manual about green infrastructure, i.e. water harvesting. And as I go through the manual, I don't see design standards spelled out in this. What is the schedule for developing and designing that part of our street project?
So you're correct. That's not something that's spelled out in the street design manual at this point. Again, the street design manual really just sets out the basic cross-section guidance, so the geometric standards of the street. The more technical standards, specifically the stuff that we can do concerning stormwater, I believe that is something that's in the works. So I might defer this question to Mr. Etue or Kevin to see if they can give you an idea on what the timeline is for that. I believe our land development department is working on some comprehensive updates to the stormwater management sections of the design standards.
Yeah, Kevin Smith with Planning Inspections. So to go along with what Joaquin said is our land development staff is working on updating our stormwater design criteria. We're working in-house right now. We'll obviously want to involve the development community once we have our initial thoughts out. And I believe one of the items on the agenda later on is to look at a low impact development subcommittee, part of the City Plan Commission. And so obviously that'd be a key role in it as we look at how do we retain our water better than we currently do. Our roadways are used for channeling water, and that's basically all, but there are opportunities to think differently about how we design roadways, how we design some of our infrastructure so that we can utilize this resource better than we currently do. So that's something we're currently in the works. We anticipate, within probably the beginning part of next year, being able to bring forward something to start having further discussions with our development community partners as well as with members of the City Plan Commission. Obviously, eventually the adoption would have to go forward formally, but we want to start having those initial conversations so that we can understand all sides of the spectrum for how roadways and how our infrastructure is designed.
Question. So you engage members of the development community, and obviously we're looking at a low impact committee with the CPC as well. Do you also engage members of the public at any point?
Eventually we would want to see if they're members of the public. Obviously I think it's something that people feel passionate about. And so we would love to hear if members of the public have any feedback as well.
Well, once we get that subcommittee going, that's an open meeting, and so members of the public are welcome to join that and participate. So, Joaquin, I had a question.
Sir.
So the cross section you had up there with the bike lanes, is that indicative of what we're going to see when you all formalize what the design manual's cross section is going to look like, or is it something that you're still developing?
So that cross-section, if you're talking about slide 13, the bicycle facilities, that's sort of a general table that's part of, I believe it's chapter 2 of the street design manual, just that sort of summarizes what's in the bike plan. I don't have it on one of the slides, but if you look at chapter 4.7, let me bring that up. Chapter 4.7 of the street design manual draft goes into detail on what those look like, what the actual cross sections of bikes look like, of bicycle facilities, sorry. Give me 1 second and then I will share my screen again.
And I guess also my question is that's one of many new elements that'll be part of the new cross section. It will be looking at, or, I mean,
I can probably answer that. So when the bike plan was adopted a few years ago, it had numerous different bicycle facilities. It had sharrows, it had bicycle lanes, had buffered bicycle lanes, had hike and bikes. The concern is right now all we have in our design standards are hike and bike trails. That's the only bike facility we have. So what this is doing is this is incorporating the different bicycle components into it, so then we have all the different options. So best practices are not to have just one type of bike facility. These are different types of, based on the circumstances, based on our individual comfort level as well. Because some of us may be comfortable, you know, weaving in and out of traffic. Others of us want to be on that hike and bike trail far away based on our comfort level. So what this does here is this incorporates those different elements. And so we have the tools to be able to have these different facilities here in our city. And Joaquin, I'm not sure if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, so Commissioner, it's a little bit different than I think what you all are going to be used to seeing, right? Which is a cross-section for a normal street and then a cross-section with a hike and bike attached to it. The City of El Paso bike plan actually lays out what they call the bicycle facility network, right? So it's essentially they took all of the components of the major thoroughfare plan and tried to identify a bicycle facility that was appropriate for that street. So what you end up with is a variety of street thoroughfares, right? So you could have a collector or a minor arterial, but you could have a collector with a dedicated bike lane, you could have a collector with a cycle track, you could have a collector with a shared use path. The same for minor and major arterials. So the way we structured this chapter 4.7 is essentially you go through that process that I outlined earlier in the PowerPoint to develop your cross-section. Then the next step is to look at the City of El Paso bike plan and the bicycle facility network and identify what sort of facility was recommended for that street. Once you've identified that facility, you then sort of tack that on to the street cross-section that you developed using the rest of the street design manual. And as Kevin said, there's different facilities, right? So there are identified in the bike plan are bicycle boulevards. Again, these are straight from the NACTO Urban Bikeway Design Guide. So there's specific standards for bicycle boulevards. Boulevard is essentially a shared street, so you don't see a lot of dimensional standards, right? It's more like pavement marking standards, signage standards, crossing standards. Again, you keep going forth, and there's bike routes, which are signed and marked shared roadways. And then we get to conventional bike lanes, where you start to see some of the more traditional sort of dimensional standards. So the desirable bike lane width adjacent to a curb face is 6 feet. The minimum rideable surface adjacent to a street edge or longitudinal joint is 3 feet. Again, these are all standards laid out in the NACTO Urban Bikeway Design Guide. So we have this, guidance like the image that's on your screen now, but you won't see a separate cross-section for each thoroughfare type with a bicycle facility attached to it. The idea is that you would build that cross-section based on your context, based on what the bike plan calls for. It's sort of a, I hate to say it because it just sounds too cliche, but it is a kit of parts approach to street design.
well, and that's my next question. I guess it's not the right time, or I guess my question is, why wouldn't now be the time to do sort of a comprehensive rewrite since you're doing the bikes? Why not include green infrastructure or low impact at the same time so we can have a new comprehensive approach in your design manual that addresses all these issues that are pending?
Well, I think ultimately specifically to green infrastructure, it can kind of be considered separately, right? The geometric standards of the street design that are laid out in the street design manual are really basics, like how wide are the lanes, how wide are the sidewalks, how wide are the parkways, right? And there's a number of different factors that are motivating factors for that, including adopted goals of Plan El Paso, of the East Side Master Plan, some of the other design manuals and standards that the city has adopted along the years. Essentially, we can supplement those with the green infrastructure changes. Additionally, this is a priority for City Council, and we've been asked to bring this forward. I think a lot of times, historically, the city has been a little bit hesitant to make changes to standards like this. So this is sort of, leading the way. Like once we adopt this street design manual, it's perfectly okay and perfectly normal if we continually make iterative changes to it, especially things like implementing green infrastructure standards, low impact development standards. We can continue to build on this base that we've now adopted as the street design manual.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have an additional question. I need some enlightenment on how this new street design standards applies to existing streets within the city. Is that part of the overall NACDO bike plan? Or how does this work?
It would apply to existing streets. So anytime, this has sort of been a disconnect in the past that the developers were sort of playing by a different set of rules than the city was applying to itself. But by adopting the street design manual in this manner, it not only applies to new development, it applies to all of our public works projects as well. So when the city identifies funding and undertakes a project, it'll be following this same set of standards. As these will be adopted by ordinance, and this will be a regulatory document. So in terms of the bicycle facilities, when the street department or capital improvement department is undertaking a project, we'll be going through essentially the same process of identifying the facility on the bicycle facility network, identifying the facility type, and ensuring that as much as possible we can implement those facilities.
I just have one last question, unless someone else does, but you mentioned that in the executive committee there was one pertinent comment that you all will be taking into consideration. What was that? Just out of curiosity.
There was a comment, there's a section on the street design manual that's specific to alleys. And there was a section that stated that alleys would be required for any development with lots less than 60 feet wide. Having talked to, discussed it internally, that's definitely was not the intent of that requirement. So what we'll be doing is taking, instead of making it a blanket application to any lots under 60 feet wide, we will tie it to a future land use map designation, a future land use map designation where, walkability and minimizing curb cuts is a priority. So really in the dense compact urban areas is where we want to have alleys because of the benefits that they provide in terms of walkability and minimizing those curb cuts and providing that sort of back of house function. The comment was specific to new development, essentially that, having that alley requirement for lots less than 60 feet wide would encourage developers to build lots wider than 60 feet, which doesn't really coincide with the city's goals for density and having compact urban areas, which I tend to agree with. So we will be revising that to make it much more specific to certain context areas where alleys make sense.
Okay, thank you.
I have another question. I'm just curious, when you engaged the development community, what was their reaction? Are they in favor? What was their general, reaction to the new standards?
I think they were generally supportive. I'm sure if those who weren't supportive are probably here today waiting for the public comment section. But I can speak specifically to the August meeting that I had. It seemed like they were generally supportive. Again, I offered myself up for meetings and conversations after that. The only organization that took me up on that was Hunt Communities, Joel Guzman, and one of their engineers. And we discussed how the new standards would impact their goals and their vision for their developments, and they were not opposed to these new standards. The big thing that has come out of the conversations with the development community is that our major thoroughfare plan needs an update. that has been shared numerous times so far. A number of the comments that we received after that meeting on the online comment document really are specific to connectivity and the major thoroughfare plan.
Okay, any other questions? No, we appreciate it, Joaquin. Thanks very much. Member of the public is here to speak. Mr. Dave.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. Thank you for your time this afternoon. For the record, Richard Dayub, Thunderbird Management Consulting, and also for the record, I am a registered lobbyist, and I represent a number of the developers that were mentioned in general in this conversation today. Good afternoon, Joaquin. I hope you're doing well. I would like to offer a couple of thoughts to you, and I would first begin by saying that we did have a meeting on November the 17th. I happened to be on that executive committee for the developer focus group that he mentioned. However, unless I was in a different meeting, I'm not trying to be sarcastic, my understanding was that we were going to get a follow-up meeting scheduled from CID with the developer focus group to talk through a number of these issues and concerns that we have, and that would be happening within the next few weeks following that meeting. Well, we are at December 2nd, and I have not been contacted. I'm not aware of any meetings that have been set up to coordinate. It would be through the Planning and Inspections Department, and we'd all work together and talk through a number of these issues. And Joaquin just mentioned one of the specific issues we did bring up during the meeting was the concern over the 60-foot lots and the requirement for alleyways. And that's just one example of the challenges that we feel have to be addressed. Ms. Lorre, I gather you read through the 136-page document? No? Partially. Well, actually, this is an example of exactly what I want to point out. This is a 136-page document. I've read through it a couple of times. It's exhausting. And if you're not an engineer or a design engineer or an architect, I'm none of those. It's especially exhausting trying to understand it all and put it all together. You have some significant responsibilities as members of the CPC, and among those, unfortunately, are things of this gigantic nature. I would encourage you over the next few weeks to take some time and read through it as much as possible. I think you'll find it's illuminating in some areas, confusing in other areas as well. But if I may, I'd like to just offer some prepared remarks to you on this. First of all, for the record, we respectfully request that the CPC postpone these two items to allow reasonable time for the development community as a whole to meet with city staff, in particular CID, to more thoroughly vet the proposed changes and make reasonable recommendations. As I mentioned, the length of the document is fairly tiring and can be difficult to comprehend, to say the least. The ideal situation for us would be for the city to conduct a complete rewrite of the MTP, which you mentioned and Joaquin mentioned in his comments as well, and engage all key stakeholders in this process. That means the development community, the MPO, the county, TxDOT. Some of the problems, we all know this, that we're dealing with today directly relate to the lack of integrated communications with some of these other entities, particularly TxDOT. I mean, you go to Zaragoza and you can see all the numbers of streets that ought to have been designed to have connectivity directly to that thoroughfare plan. So, and instead what we have is the element of water seeking its own level with traffic and people weaving through communities that are designed for 30-mile-an-hour speed limits so they can navigate the quickest way to get to where they need to get to because they can't get there through normal thought processes that would be aligned if we had worked together in the first place. And I think...
Excuse me, Mr. Dave, you've
Yes,
reached your 3 minutes.
May I have a moment or two longer?
Yeah, how long would you need?
Just another 2 minutes?
Sure, you get it.
Okay, thank you. So, As I mentioned, we have not yet had that meeting that we were promised that we would have. I think that's the very least that we could do. So to close this and to be respectful of your time, we'd like to point out, I won't repeat the piece about the 60 feet, but also in the MTP, they did not really proceed as a typical city MTP amendment process should proceed. And so we're recommending, if you don't postpone, which we're encouraging you to do, that you consider in both situations, both for the street design manual and the MTP, that you proceed as a resolution and not as an ordinance. We appreciate your time. We appreciate the fact that city management and the CID have worked in an expedited manner to try and meet the demands being placed upon them by City Council. We understand how this whole process works. But we also recognize that this is such an incredibly important document that it should not be rushed through. And I would just like us to have some more meetings and have some time to review these documents together, working hand in hand with CID and planning inspections to come up with some solutions. We don't have a laundry list of concerns, so this is not something that would take weeks or months, but simply a meeting or two, and I think we can probably work through most of those issues, and then come forward by being able to say from the development community's perspective that we support the amendments and move on.
How many meetings did they have with you all?
Well, as he indicated, there were a couple of presentations, but really, correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, sometimes I go to so many meetings like all of you, they run together, but they were really more cursory presentations. It wasn't like we went through a thorough vetting of the entire process.
Yeah, I would say the meetings were an overview, and the development committee was provided links to comment as needed.
I mean, I would think, also, I think COVID probably had an effect. You know, meetings that we've had the last couple of years were mostly presentations whereby you're provided links to comment and feedback.
Yep.
And that's the nature of how that was working, I think, so.
No, you're right, Chairman, and I would indicate that, I'm not sure if Joaquin was referring to me, but I was one of those people who made a few comments online, but I would tell you that outside of my comments, the only ones I saw appeared to be comments made by staff of the city. I didn't see any comments made by the development community or the public in general. So I do think it warrants another meeting. And to your point about COVID, yes, but in November 17th, we met in person. But again, we didn't go through very much. It was really, this is what we want to accomplish. We pointed out a couple of these things during that meeting. And then we asked for a gathering. That commitment was made to us to meet. I'm trying to think, I think Alex Hoffman was online with us, in fact, that he was not physically present for the meeting. He was calling in virtually while the rest of us were in the room. But we haven't had that meeting yet. So that's all we're asking for.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you for the extra time.
You bet. All right, can we move to further discussion on this?
I guess one comment I have is you know, this seems to be a very important update to the design manual, and Joaquin said that only one developer requested an individual meeting to discuss the standards, and I just don't know. It doesn't make. I don't know why the developers have been more involved in providing comments. I mean, this is going to affect them, you know, substantially. I don't know if they have. Did they know about it? Did they have proper notice? I don't understand how they're not being more engaged in this process.
Sure, go ahead.
Commissioner Reyes, again, for the record, Richard Dayub, you make a very valid point, and I think it's one that we're all concerned about. So let me just offer this very quickly. First of all, kudos to City Plan Commission, kudos to our city staff who have worked very hard over the last couple of years as they've developed this developer focus group that we meet on a regular basis, monthly, and our executive committee meets a week in advance of those meetings as well. But partly because of COVID, partly because the development community, like all of us, are extremely busy, and oftentimes those individuals and this is not an excuse for them, either the ones I represent or the many others I do not represent, that they're so busy, they're focused on the task at hand and are unable to devote extra time to sit down and analyze a document of this magnitude, and then following that, pose questions and get scheduled for meetings. It's just a reality that we all live with, right? It's not unique to the development community as a whole, but it's not through any lack of effort by the city staff at planning and inspections. In fact, they've helped move us closer together, working together, but we still have some ground to cover. And I think, to your point, if we could really have that meeting and get folks to participate, you're never going to get all of the developers who are affected or potentially affected to meet, but at least several of the larger ones to get together and offer some of their expertise to this process, I think would be immensely helpful. Thank you again.
Thank you. Okay, let's close this to just a discussion amongst the commissioners. Go ahead, Kathy.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if there are other members of the public who would like to speak on this item.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are there any others? I have the list in front of me, but if there's any others signed up to speak, please star 6 to unmute yourself. Okay. Go ahead, Kathy.
Mr. Chair, if I could, this is Joaquin Rodriguez real quick. Mr. Dave mentioned that their comments are not extensive. I see no reason why you all could still move forward with your recommendation today. And I'm happy to follow up with Mr. Dayu and our staff at City 3 and have, however many meetings they want. I'm sure we can, work on whatever comments they have prior to City Council.
I had a quick question about when this all started and various delays, and we will be delayed even more over the Christmas holidays. And so I, for one, prefer a resolution to this fairly soon, rather than more delays. I saw a long list of focus groups. I saw Hunt communities being consulted.
Can I interrupt you? Joaquin, could you pull up your meetings list that you opened with while we discuss this? Thank you. Go ahead. Keep going, yes. Kathy, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's, it's just that, I saw various efforts to consult with developers and, probably many more than the public. And so I would like to see us move toward a resolution fairly quickly.
Right. And I just have a few comments regarding Mr. Dabe's presentation. Number one, you asked if we would just pass this as a resolution and not an ordinance, but we don't pass either. I think you would be addressing City Council on that. Number two, regarding text dot coordination, I think there's a limit to what the city can do, and I think it becomes a political issue, frankly, with your experience at the chamber. As state reps, I think would be really the appropriate people that would be able to get text dot to coordinate with the city. And I know that's been a long problem that we've had here. And thirdly, I know it's a long document, but I was briefed on it a little bit. I bet you haven't read Title 20 or Title 9 because, what this is an effort is to consolidate a lot of these different codes and give something that the design community, the development community can use to be a little more creative, a little bit more flexible. I know it might not seem like that. It probably seems constrictive at this point. But I know Joaquin is a professional. It's been doing this a long time and does get to consensus, no matter how hard that is. So I would trust that he would do that. Us, approving this today, I don't think stops any progress or efforts for you all to be able to work this out together. So that's my comment on this. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, if I might, Kevin Smith with Planning Inspections, and I think Joaquin mentioned it, but we'll commit to before going to City Council to work with our development partners, and to any things that need to be resolved, we'll work through those before taking it forward to council.
Yeah, council's the final word on this anyway, and we're a recommending body, and at this point we don't want to hold it up at this level. So if there are any other comments, we can move to make a motion. Are we making a motion to recommend this to City Council?
I'll make a motion. Motion to approve, to move forward. Guzman?
Stout, recommend, I second.
So I'm sorry, you second?
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Okay, to item number 6, please. And I want to apologize to the folks signed up for item number 6, Ms. Carrion, Ms. Villagran, Ms. Campos, and Ms. Hernandez. I did not realize that we were moving into a long presentation that would keep you all here. I hope your parking meters aren't expired. I think that was a bit of a mistake on my part, not to allow this to go forward before the other items. So if you have parking tickets, I will pay for them. I apologize. That's my bad.
wow.
Okay.
Is the presentation visible?
Yes.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the Commission. This is George Olmos with Planning and Inspections. Item 6 on the agenda is a rezoning application for 7240 North Loop Drive. This slide shows an aerial image of the subject property. The property is a 1.0773 acre parcel. The applicant is requesting to rezone the subject property from a C1 commercial to C4 commercial in order to permit for the use of a general warehouse. This slide shows the current zoning. The subject property is currently zoned as C1 commercial. The applicant is requesting to rezone the subject property from C1 commercial to C4 commercial. The property to the north and across a major arterial is zoned as an M1 light manufacturing. The property to the south is zoned as A2 apartments with residential development. And to the east and west, the surrounding properties are zoned as C4 commercial with conditions. This slide shows the future land use map. The subject property is located within the G7 industrial and/or rail yard future land use designation, and the proposed zoning of a C4 commercial is consistent with the policies of Plan El Paso. This slide shows the conceptual site plan submitted with the rezoning application. The conceptual site plan shows one proposed structure with an area of 12,000 square feet. There is currently an existing 7,308 square foot building on the subject property that will be demolished. In addition, all other dimensional standards are being met. Primary access to the development is from North Loop Drive. Here we can see the subject property. And here are the properties abutting the subject property. To reiterate, to the north is a major arterial and the crosshead property zoned as M1, light manufacturing. To the west and east, similarly zoned C4 commercially zoned properties, and to the south, residential development zoned as A2 apartments. Public notice for the rezoning was mailed on November 17th, 2021 to property owners within 300 feet. As of December 2nd, 2021, the Planning Division has received 3 emails and 1 phone call in opposition to the request and 1 email in inquiry, as well as a petition with 25 signatures in opposition to the request. The petition was received just prior to the CPC meeting. Staff recommends approval with conditions of the rezoning request as the proposed development meets the intent of the G7 industrial and/or rail yard future land use designation of Plan El Paso, the City of El Paso's comprehensive plan. The conditions are as follows: that a 10-foot landscape buffer with high-profile native or naturalized trees of at least 2-inch caliber and 10 feet in height shall be placed at 25 feet on center along the property lines adjacent to the residential zones, zone districts, or uses. The landscape buffer shall be irrigated and maintained by the property owner at all times and shall be installed prior to the issuance of any certificates of occupancy. The second condition is that the following uses shall be prohibited: automotive repair garages, automobile or truck part sales, automobile, light and heavy trucks, buses, motorcycles, and boat sales, storage, rental, or services, motor carrier terminals, and manufacturing uses. And third, that a detailed site development plan shall be provided and approved in accordance with the city code prior to the issuance of any building permits or certificates of occupancy. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
I have a question.
Sure.
Chair. So the proposal is C4,
Yes,
but with restrictions?
correct.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. I guess this would be a question for Kevin and Raul. Last meeting, we had the same issue on McCray about issuing a C4 to a property, and you guys were very hesitant to control the uses of that property. So what is the difference between this property and the one on McCray? Do you recall that?
Sure.
Yes, that was, the previous property actually was I believe it was from R3 residential to C1, so the use was not as intensive as the C4 commercial use.
Go ahead, Ann.
Right, so as George just explained, the requested zoning district that you heard last time was C1, which is a neighborhood commercial. C4 is a more intense commercial district that's intended to serve the city. And the particular uses under discussion were those related to alcohol sales, which Texas state law imposes some pretty strong limitations on cities' ability to regulate. In general, cities have the ability outside of those alcohol-related uses to state which are prohibited in which districts, and were warranted to further limit them by condition to rezoning ordinance, which is what we're proposing today.
That's correct. And if I may add a little bit of Raul Garcia, planning inspections. In this particular case, as you can see, some of the abutting properties are already zoned commercial. In terms of the FLUME, the future land use map, which guides our recommendation in terms of rezonings, this is a G7 area, which is geared for industrial and heavy commercial. And thirdly, again, those already zoned, commercially zoned properties, as you can see, do have existing conditions. So that's something we also look at as part of our analysis. And the conditions being presented today are essentially matching up with the existing conditions that are already there on those abutting properties. So those are all the factors that have played into today's recommendation. As in all cases, every case is different. But again, those are the mitigating factors that played into staff's recommendation today.
Thank you, Raul. I just want to be fair, straight across the board.
I agree with you. I perceived that too, like the, restrictive, taking by restriction or taking by zoning, but it's, I guess in the rezone, the opportunities when we're rezoning are the only opportunities that we have to add any kind of restrictions like this. And it's dictated by the neighboring conditions and restrictions?
Yes, sir. Yes,
okay.
sir. In terms of compatibility, existing conditions, everything within 300 feet is definitely looked at very closely.
Okay. Yes, go ahead,
If I
Kathy.
may, we have to allow all these other businesses to do their business in town. We cannot just say no more C4s because we don't want them. I mean, all these warehouses, car lots, all these people have a right to do their business also. So we need to allow these zonings also.
Go ahead, Kathy.
I noticed the list of restrictions too, but I also read carefully the letters from community people and leaders in neighborhood associations. And one of the letters indicates that the owner plans to have trucks going in and out. Yet this is a restriction that you are proposing that we approve. I just, as we continue in our city to have non-attainment zones for pollution, ozone, et cetera, the idea of families and children and schools nearby, even more trucks with the fine particle releases and so on, just scares me to death for the future of this community.
I need to say, before we start having a discussion amongst ourselves about our opinions about this, we need to hear from the applicant. So if you don't have any questions for staff that are not opinions, then we'd like to hear from the applicant, please. *6 to unmute yourself if you're on the phone.
Hi, this is Luis Guevara with Seated 3. We're available for any questions.
Okay, do you agree with all staff comments?
Yes, we agree.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant?
I guess I do. Are you aware that you're not going to be able to do what you're proposing to do if we move on with their recommendations?
We're saying they're going to approve us to be C4 with conditions, which conditions allow us to have a warehouse. It's just a matter that we need the trucks to come in and out to deliver the product. But we are aware of the conditions of the landscape and the fencing of the conditions imposed and the detailed development site plan.
If I might, Kevin Smith with Planning Inspections, I think we should be clear with what the conditions are, because I don't think Ann or George, if you can jump in, I don't think we're restricting trucks. It's just,
We are not.
It is just certain components of trucks, such as I believe sales, the repair,
And rental.
Manufacturing, and motor carrier terminals. So those are the proposed restrictions. So trucks would be permitted on the property. It's just not those that are listed on the conditions if approved.
Right, so
Agreed.
that condition is more, it's about automobile-related businesses, not large automobiles going onto the property. Right. Go ahead.
Except that the language does say that the following uses shall be prohibited. It doesn't say sales.
It's confusing language, I have to say.
Yeah.
And that is verbatim per the code. So each of those are the permitted uses. It's just we stick to what is in the code. And so obviously that is one thing looking forward that we'll need to address, because a lot of them won't need clarification.
So basically, trucks are going to be allowed to go in and out.
They would be allowed just those components, so the sales, the rentals, the parts, all those would not be allowed.
And would the trucks be allowed to idle overnight?
No.
Right. Road Garcia Plans. In terms of the way the uses are set up in the code, no. Again, a warehouse is permitted in all C4 districts. As has been discussed previously, your more specifically geared uses towards heavy truck sales, storage, maintenance, which typically involve overnight idling. Those uses would not be permitted in this particular property with that condition.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicants? Nope. Then can we hear from members of the public, please? Ms. Carrion?
Mission Valley Civic Association. And I find it easier to share my work to the commissions as I go through the paperwork, because it's faster. And that way we could do it.
Ms. Carrion, I just want to let you know you have 3 minutes, so I don't want to interrupt you, but I just want to let you know that in the beginning.
We're going to hurry through this. If you'll see the first letter, that's to me. This is the application that's going to be done. The second picture is CH Diesel Industries, and you'll see the description of the land. The second picture, you'll see the trucks that's on the property. The fourth picture is more CH Diesel Industries, and so forth and so on. This land is owned by Sergio Teran at 7240 North Loop. If you'll follow through, that's under the city appraisers. He is the owner, 7240. At 7234, he is also the owner of 7234. That one is already a C4 with conditions. Okay, there's an ordinance already on that particular 7234 North Loop with those same conditions that they're requesting today. And you'll see the city appraisal district. You'll see I kind of circled CH Diesel Industries Corporation, Sergio Teran, and he is the owner of those properties. Okay, and as we go follow through, Sergio Teran 7334. You continue people of the state of Texas, but it's still at 7234, it's still Sergio Teran. At 7244 North Loop, it's the same, the state of Texas, the same conditions from a C1 to a C4 with the same restrictions and same conditions. City of is still Sergio Teran. It appears to us that someone is trying to get all these properties to be rezoned C4, because once approved this request at 7240 North Loop to a C4, they will have all the properties zoned at C4, and sooner or later, these special conditions will be eliminated. And we'll have a full business of diesel trucks coming in and out of the area of North Loop. I understand that the city plans of industrial development are within the reach of this property, but not in our neighborhoods. This commission has already approved many businesses coming to El Paso over the airport. You all approve businesses for Marshalls, CD Maxx, Amazons, and everything's north of the freeway. All of these big companies, okay, over a global reach at the same time. We are not against trucking industries. As they move America, so does the railroad, but not in our backyard. There are many other locations within the city of this type of venture, as there are in over at the Pan American highways. They have a lot of truckers. There's a lot. This gentleman is trying to make this property a C4, because eventually, after a few years, when you all are gone and I'm gone, this property will go full-blood, and they will eliminate those special conditions, and they will put a diesel trucking industry in there. Please do not allow this to happen. We do not want the same thing that happened to Alameda with the car lots to happen to North Loop with the diesel truck industry. And you are correct, ma'am. These are the ideas of these people. I don't blame them. It's a business, but not in our backyard. Okay, not in our backyard. Thank you very much. Oh, I have some pictures. Can I show them?
Well, your time is up, but are you able to, did you email them in, or?
Well, I just wanted to show you that this is 72, this is the land in question. This is the property next door to him. This is his owner. He owns this building. He can use this as a warehouse.
Understood.
And this is also a warehouse. Okay, he doesn't have to dump this building. He can use those buildings as warehouses. Okay, so he doesn't have to change the C4. He already has everything capable of doing what he needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Corrion.
Thank you, Kevin.
Ms. Villagrán?
Good afternoon, commissioners and city staff. My name is Elba Villagran, Vice President of Styles Garden Association. I am here representing Raul Dominguez, president of Styles Garden Association. Unfortunately, he's not able to come because he's in the hospital right now. We oppose the zoning from a C1 to a C4 at 7240 North Loop for a warehouse. This is what the man says, okay? But we're looking that he has other titles and other buildings, as you already heard Mrs. Carrion say. We oppose this to the safety issues. Having citizens nearby, to the right of this building, we have 2 sets of apartments and a nursing home across from this building less than 300 feet away, which didn't get a notice of zoning. We have residents all around this building. The cost of admissions that affect the health and well-being of our community. In addition, having traffic congestion and bringing semi-trucks to the area. We also had an incident happen right there at this place where a gentleman was hit and killed. We have a school nearby. Our children don't need to be exposed to any more pollution. This would be suitable for community venues, such as much needed store, a pharmacy, or a recreation center that would have even a library. Please consider our area, it's a residential area. We don't need more commercial in this area, and I do have a petition, which we just turned in, of 25 people, 2 more that I put in, 27 people opposing it. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Villagrán. Ms. Campos?
Good afternoon, commissioners and city staff. My name is Fabiola Campos Lopez. I represent Corridor 20 Civic Association in the Mission Valley. I'm also the chair for El Paso Neighborhood Coalition, which is a network of all neighborhood associations in the city. I'm here just to support Styles Garden. There's 2 or 3 things. This is the time for where you make it happen for the community or ruin it for the community. This is the time that it happened before all the auto sales happened on Alameda. This is the first step. It happened at that time. If you allow it as C4, which is an industrial, I understand the comments and the guidelines from city staff or from planning department that this area is considered G4 industrial. But this is used to be when these iconic neighborhoods are in between. There's the railroad tracks that they already exist there for many years, and then there's an industrial where it used to be the Sears warehouse. That was the way, but now it's mostly empty warehouses. Now in between North Loop and the tracks, the train tracks, it is 2 iconic neighborhoods. Rosedale, which is very important for the Mission Valley because they continue and preserve what is ranch and farm. And then on this side, this guys is in the backyard of their houses that this person or owner will continue to build industrial type of business. One thing that he may say that it's a warehouse, general warehouse, but even on your attachments that it's submitted on the back report from the planning, one of the attachments, it has his title. It's CH in diesel industrial. What are they going to use it for if it's not to transport? And then another thing that for you to consider, that one of the prohibitions is that no motor freight terminals will be allowed. And with this man saying unloading and loading, according to the dictionary, motor terminals means a building or area in which freight brought by motor truck is assembled or stored for routing in infrastate or interstate shipment. So that's what he's gonna be doing. And it is gonna be prohibited as recommended by planning. No prohibit, or am I wrong? Motor carrier terminal is prohibited, and that's what it means.
So typically, it's not time to respond, but yes, that would be a prohibited use, and if they were in violation, then we'd send our code enforcement staff out to enforce.
Yes, but if you have the chance to accept our denial recommendation, we really appreciate. Not only for us it's only paper. Even for me, I don't live in the area. But it happened to us once, and that's why we are here to support Styles Garden Neighborhood Association. They have seniority in the area. They're gonna have this enormous warehouse, and they're gonna be living with the problems, trying to call compliance and all that. Why? If we have the chance to deny it right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Campos. Gerardo Hernandez? If you're calling in, please *6 to unmute yourself. Gerardo Hernandez.
Hello, this is Gerardo Hernandez. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I've lived in this area for about a little over 30 years, and very little attention was placed on my neighborhood for many years, even after I first moved in here. A lot of the updates that have been done to our neighborhood were started when I started a petition with close to 300 signatures back then, and most of the updates were done with federal grants. Most of my neighbors at that time were elderly neighbors, and when I started petitioning, they kept telling me, city council's not going to listen to you. We've gone down there, we've had it out with them. They don't do nothing for our streets. Our streets would get flooded. Our streets were, our sidewalks were all broken. The pavement was, the street was all broke up. But, we eventually started getting it looking a lot nicer, thanks to the work done by people like Ms. Elva and this other lady that's there representing the Styles Garden area, and myself when I got all this started. And thankful for other people that took over and started petitioning and asking for more things to update our neighborhood. The bottom line is we're trying to look out for our neighborhood. We live in an area that's highly contaminated already. Ramona Elementary School is one of the most contaminated schools, not only in El Paso, but probably in the state of Texas, from a study that was done about 25 years ago by this agency that was doing soil samples. And I know that they came to my house at 217 and did a soil sample on my property too. And they did soil samples of throughout the neighborhood. And we were actually rated one of the highest contaminated areas in the, actually I believe it was the country. Now, we don't need to add more pollution to our area. We need to conserve our health as much as we can. I don't think we need to be adding more diesel products or stuff like that to our neighborhood. We got the refineries, 2 refineries down the street from us. We have the other refinery across the street from us too, which used to be called the South Dodge. Both those, all those 3 companies have changed the names. So, we have plenty of other areas throughout town that they can run their business.
Mr. Hernandez, I'm sorry to bother you, but your time is up.
All right.
I appreciate
Thank
you.
you. And I am against this, okay?
I'm sorry?
I am totally against moving this to a C.
Okay. Understood. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your input.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we have any other members of the public signed up to speak? *6 to unmute yourself, please.
Excuse me, I got one more question. the gentleman said product, warehousing product. What product are they want to warehouse there?
I'm sorry, your time is up. We've heard your comment, but thank you.
Well, that was not a comment, that was a question.
It's a question we can't answer, but thanks for your question and your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we can move to further discussion among the commissioners.
If I might, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Again, Kevin Smith with Planning Inspection. Just want to remind the commission, when you approve a rezoning, you approve a myriad of uses that are associated with this. Obviously, they're looking at something right now, but there are other ones that are looked at. If items are not approved, such as, you know, certain uses, that would limit what they can do in terms of use. If they wanted to change that, if they wanted to pursue one of these uses, that would go through, similar to a rezoning. We'd notify within 300 feet. It would go through the same process where a recommendation would come from City Plan Commission to City Council, which is the final authority, to amend any of these conditions. So it'd still go through that public vetting process. The neighbor associations would be notified. Those within 300 feet would be notified. So I just want to remind the commission of when you're approving a rezoning, even though they may be looking at one, again, it's a C, if approved, a C4, but a C4 comes with various components as part of it.
A myriad of uses, right?
Yes.
Okay, Kathy, do you have something?
I don't know if it's appropriate, but I've done research on environmental health, and I have cited the EPA study that was done of 125,000 schools in the United States, and Ramona Elementary was in the top 1% for contaminated air and soil quality. And when that came out about 10 or 15 years ago, I didn't even see much in the paper about it. This is, to have residents be exposed to this, and especially the children, is, I think, you know, the height of indecency.
Go ahead.
I'd like to comment about this neighborhood. Being familiar with it for many years, living in El Paso, it is an iconic neighborhood, and it's very fragile in its present state because there is a lot of change in zoning. I think, my opinion, going forward with the C4 change would destroy this neighborhood, and I think we'd lose an important part of El Paso.
Commissioner Guzman, were you going to say something? No? Okay. Goodness.
And I agree with that. I didn't realize there were residents behind the property, so it's not fair to put a C4 behind the houses.
Is there they mentioned the nursing home that's across the streets within 300 feet. Is that a possibility that they didn't get notification? Well, I'm just asking staff, ma'am. You made that comment. I'm following up on your comment, so I'm doing my due diligence for you.
Let me see.
George.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask Mr. Olmos.
Can you comment? But all properties within 300 feet, the property owners would have been notified as part of this proposal.
And guarantee for the record, notices are sent to the owner of record for each of the properties within 300 feet. It is possible that if the owner is off campus at that particular location, that it would have been sent not directly to the physical location.
Right, so the owner might not have let any of the residents know or the staff. It's a possibility, right? So, okay. Well, if there's no other comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I would like to move to deny rezoning to C4.
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I am sincere. I will pay your parking tickets. Seriously. Please let me know. Item number 7.
Okay, thank you, IT. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the Commission. Luis Zamora with Planning and Inspections. Item 7 on the agenda is a detailed site development plan for a proposed shopping center on 2 properties at 701 Americas Avenue. The properties are located at the northwest corner of North Loop Drive and Americas Avenue within District 6. These 2 properties are Zone C3, commercial with a special contract. Ordinance number 6567, dated May 1st, 1979, rezoned the property from C1 commercial to its current zoning district, which is C3, and imposed conditions via a special contract. Condition 1 requires a detailed site development plan be approved by the City Plan Commission prior to any development. Additionally, conditions 2 and 3 were imposed, but we are not considering those as they're not applicable to the subject properties. Here we have the future land use designation, which is G4 Suburban. The proposed shopping center is in character with its land use designation. The applicant proposes to develop a shopping center on both properties. The site plan shows 1 building with a total area of 21,000 square feet and a maximum height of 25 feet. The proposed development will span across the properties. The required side yard setback for both properties is 0, which allows such development in such configuration. There is also a possibility of the property owner combining those properties into one. A minimum of 76 vehicular parking spaces and 3 bicycle spaces are required, with the proposed project providing 83 vehicular parking spaces consisting of 80 regular parking spaces and 3 accessible parking spaces, as well as 3 bicycle spaces within both properties to serve the proposed use. Here we have the elevations. Again, as noted, the maximum height is 25 feet. Here we have the site plan superimposed on aerial imagery. Primary access is proposed from Americas Avenue and from North Loop Drive. This is an image of the subject property looking from North Loop towards the north. Here are pictures of the properties around it. Property directly abutting to the northeast consists of a medical clinic zone C3, commercial with a special contract. And property directly abutting to the northwest consists of a drainage channel right away, with properties farther northwest across Ivy Road consisting of a store and a contractor yard, zone C3 commercial. Property to the southwest across North Loop Drive consists of a used auto dealership, zone C3, with conditions of special contract, and properties to the southeast across Americas Avenue, Loop 375, consist of a convenience store with a gas station and undeveloped land, zone C3, with a special contract. So with all this, the staff recommends approval of the request, as the proposed development of a shopping center is consistent with surrounding commercial uses and meets the requirements of El Paso City Code Section 20.04.150 Detailed Site Development Plan. Furthermore, the development is in character with the G4 Suburban Future Land Use Designation of Plan El Paso. And this concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Zamora. Any questions for staff? No. Can we hear from the applicant, please? Star 6 to unmute yourself. CAD Consulting.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, this is Enrique with CAD Consulting, and we concur with all staff comments.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? No. Okay. Can we get a motion?
Motion to approve, Guzman.
Second, Stout.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, item number 8, please.
trying to get the presentation to open up here. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Andrew Salome with Planning Inspections. Item number 8 on the agenda is a special permit application for property located at 2405 McCray Boulevard. The subject property is 0.689 acres in size. It is currently zoned R3 residential and is currently used as a fire station. The applicant is requesting a special permit to allow for governmental use of building in an R3 residential zone district in accordance with the El Paso City Code, section 20.04.320, special permit. The detailed site development plan does show a new 1,768 square foot addition to the existing 4,650 square foot fire station. The proposed development does comply with the all density and dimensional standards. The development does require 13 vehicular parking spaces along with 3 bicycle spaces which will be provided on the subject property. The development also complies with Title 18.46 of the Landscape Ordinance. Access to the subject property is provided from McCray Boulevard, Daughtery Drive, and Stonehaven Drive. This is a site plan imposed on the aerial map. This is a view of the subject property. This is a view of the surrounding properties. There's to the north is a church property, which was recommended for rezoning about 2 weeks ago by this body. To the south is residential. To the east is Eastwood High School. And to the west is also residential. Planning Division did not receive any communication in support or opposition of the request. Planning Division also did not receive any adverse comments from any of the reviewing departments. Staff does recommend approval of the special permit for governmental use building in an R3 residential zone district with the condition that the utility easement that runs through the existing fire station building shall be vacated prior to the issuance of certificate of occupancy. The proposal does meet the requirements of section 20.04.320 special permit and also 20.04.150, the detailed site development plan. Recommendation is also based on the consistency of the request with Plan El Paso, the city's adopted comprehensive plan. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Saloom. Any questions for staff? If not, can we hear from the applicant, please?
Good afternoon, George Halou with SLI Engineering, and we concur with all staff comment.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Nope. Okay, can we get a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, this is a public hearing.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's okay. If there are any members of the public signed up to speak, *6 to unmute yourself because I don't see you in this room. Now I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve, Stout.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Final item, number 9.
Okay, good afternoon, Chair and members of the Commission. Kevin Smith with Planning Inspections. So it was requested to for the formation of a low impact development subcommittee of the City Planning Commission. Just by way of the bylaws, I would like to read them real quick, just so that when creating this, y'all can consider what the makeup is required. So the committee can be established either through the chair or through a vote from the subcommittee or from the committee as a whole. It shall have, again, membership is key, so we don't want to create a quorum of the City Plan Commission. So the requirement is no less than 3, but no more than 4. So you can either have 3 or 4 members of the City Plan Commission participate as part of the subcommittee. And then if required voting, then at least 2 members are present. Obviously, any action that subcommittee takes would come before the commission as a whole at a later time. And obviously, members of the public are invited also to participate as well, and then staff would be able to assist as needed. But I believe, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if you have any comments you'd like to add.
No, I appreciate y'all bringing this forward. Will there be staff dedicated? Is that something that we can request, or is that something that's available to
so
us?
staff would be able to assist as needed. Obviously, as it relates to low impact development, probably like one of the key players is our land development staff who deals with stormwater infrastructure. I can only speak for planning inspection staff, but there are obviously other entities we would invite and try to get their involvement of any action or anything that was work to be done.
And as far as chairing the subcommittee, is that something that I could do, or does someone else need to do that as far as the
someone?
rules?
It'd be whoever is selected amongst the 3 or 4 members.
They'd have to be nominated.
Not necessarily at this meeting here.
No, but in general.
Russell Abelin, Assistant City Attorney. So I think you would vote on the subcommittee here, the members, and then when you'd meet in the subcommittee, you'd vote for officers there.
Okay, got you. And then you all would also help with the specifics of where we could meet, and
we can assist in terms of locations. Obviously, it would not be a publicized public meeting per se, where we would file with the city clerks and put it on the city website, since it's not a quorum of the City Plan Commission.
I see.
But we'd want to make sure we get the word out to the appropriate individuals to invite them to participate and for their feedback, whatever the subcommittee desires. Obviously, be up to them if they would like to attend.
Okay. And okay, so all we're here to do is vote on whether to proceed with the subcommittee.
Correct, as well as identify those 3 or 4 individuals of the City Plan Commission who would like to participate.
Okay, Kathy, you had a comment?
I have a question about quorum. If there are 4 people, is it still 2 or 2.5?
So quorum of the City Plan Commission?
Quorum of the low impact subcommittee.
Okay, my understanding is what, 2? Two.
I think it would be 3 if there's 4 people.
That makes sense.
Okay, as per the bylaws, each committee shall require the presence of 2 voting members for purpose of a quorum, as per the bylaws.
Cool. Okay, so if we can get a motion on that.
And we'd have to identify those 3 or 4 members of the CPC who would like to participate as well.
So stepwise, do we first approve the subcommittee and then nominate, or do we nominate and then approve? Or
So
volunteer?
the way it's written as one item, so I think you could do it all together if you wanted to. But you could, whatever you prefer at your discretion.
Well, let's just go forward with somebody making the motion. We'll create the subcommittee, and then we'll volunteer for the subcommittee and approve that.
I move that we create the low impact subcommittee. Stout.
Second, Lori.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. And volunteers for that subcommittee? We're gonna have to have arm wrestling.
So, if I might be as obvious, it sounds like there's a lot of interest in this. There'll be other topics as the commission desires to have subcommittees on. So we'll leave it amongst yourselves to determine.
That's how I tell my kids. There's other toys, guys. There's other toys.
Yeah, there are other toys to play with. So you all can determine who would like to participate.
Well, I'm a little bit adamant to be on it. So.
Yeah, this is my toy.
I don't need to be on it because I'm the newest person, so I need to learn more.
Okay. All right, you're in?
You can take it. I'm in, but she can take it. It doesn't matter. Whatever you guys like.
You volunteer too.
I want the waterman in on
Mr.
it.
Reyes is always commenting on that, so yeah.
Yeah, I need the waterman involved for sure. You know,
I can offer the engineering side of it.
Right.
I think, so I'll offer that if that's okay.
we'd like to have you as well, so between you two, can you work it out?
Take it, you can take it.
Okay. Okay, so then let's vote on the slate. That would be Cummings, Lorai, Reyes, and Stout. No.
If I'm, okay. I move to accept the nominees.
Second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Subcommittee is created. Will the first, do I need to go ahead and start organizing how we'll meet and where we'll meet, or?
We can coordinate
Okay.
on terms of time and location. Yeah, so we can figure that out.
Are you going to be our staff person for this, or is it going to be someone else?
To be determined. I might be there to assist, but let's just say we're a little busy right now. But we'll identify proper staff to be there.
Okay.
Obviously, I'd be happy to be involved, but we have other folks in our department, other staff members who can provide more of the technical expertise that, frankly, I do not have.
Great. And then on the other business, I have two items. Number one is parking. I think that maybe the commissioners weren't onboarded the way that I was because of COVID, so they don't have their orange free parking passes, which is, well,
But he had to leave early because he said he had a.
Kevin needs one, I believe.
So we previously put out the message to all the commissioners. We'll do it again in terms of how to get your parking pass, which is available at the one-stop shop, 811 Texas. Just mention you're a member of the City Plan Commission, and then staff there can assist you getting a parking pass, so you shouldn't have to jump out and feed the meter.
Right. And the second one is the statement to the public rewrite. Do you know where that stands?
It should hopefully be by next meeting.
Legal? Is it legal?
Yeah.
Okay.
So shortly.
All right, great.
And then, Mr. Chair, we do have item 12 on the agenda.
We do?
Yes, we do.
Darn it. Okay.
So, again, Kevin Smith with Planning Inspection. So y'all, the commissioners would provide the agenda or the proposed schedule for 2022. It is proposed to start the meetings on January 13th. And then from there, it's actually every 2 weeks. So we've avoided holidays. And so that's a proposed schedule again at 1:30 in the afternoon. The first meeting is proposed to be our business meeting, which is anticipated to take care of the business, have some special items to be presented to the City Plan Commission by various entities within the city and our partners. And then there'd be a limited amount of cases, our typical subdivision zoning cases. We're not anticipating to have any, but if there are some, we're trying to keep it to a minimum so we can focus on other items. And then our typical subdivision and zoning cases would start to be heard again on January 27th. So we would appreciate your adoption of this and be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I move to adopt.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Can we get a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for a good, long meeting, everyone. Kevin, you missed it. Free parking. It's like Monopoly. You're out of the room, though. There is a parking pass available at at the one-stop shop for you. So free parking. Do I have to say that over and over again? I saw you putting meters, money meters.